till I die. Raise the banner, let it fly. Through the rain, through the fire. This is my cause, my only desire. We're the ones who rise in the clash. Numbers running in a white shirt dash. History burns in the roaring crowd. Every game we scream it loud. I'm trying to jump them till I die. Raise the banner, let it fly. Through the rain, through the fire. This is my club, my only desire.
Hi guys, and welcome to THF CO2 with I, home at on the past, present, and exciting future under Thomas Frank. And tonight we're going to try to explain. Well, I'm going to try to explain. Well, we're going to try to explain Frank Ball and what's it about, and what's the difference between Ange Ball and Thomas Frank and Ange Postecoglou. Now, a lot of you saying a hell of a lot, but there is some similarities between the two. But joining me tonight, helping me along this quest of understanding what Thomas Frank and what he may bring to the Spurs is Steve. How are you, Steve? Is it still hot over there where you are, sir?
Yep, and they're still working on the roof, and so you might hear some banging, and I do apologize, but it is. It's your typical Saturday afternoon here in the grand state of Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Everything happens on a Saturday. But guys, we will get on with it. There's a lot to get crammed in. We're going to try this. We'll try to do this shortly, but we're going to welcome a few people in the chat. We've got Giant68 says, big up, Dermot, team and chat, big up you, big up. It says, Unite you, under 21 finals just kicked off, England versus Germany. And I think England are 1-0 up through Harvey Elliott from Liverpool. So good start from England. He is crowning, has just updated Spurs source, said Thomas Frank will get a substantial budget this window and 2 to 3 signings in before pre-season. Well, as we told you, it is going to happen. The future is bright. The future is lily white. Big up to you, Giant. Big up to Jessica again. Depends who them signers are, to be honest. Yes, that's true. Giant says Chris Cowland also said sources have said Spurs are backed away from as ideal today, but also could be getting Ramsey. Well, they said the same thing yesterday. And everyone seems to be repeating the same thing. So I'm not going to repeat what we've been saying since last night. We just wait and see what happens. Big up to what's the point? What was there any point in getting rid of Ange? Well, 22 reasons. 22 reasons of getting rid of Ange. I think, Steve, wouldn't you agree? I know he won us a trophy, but there was 22 reasons.
No, it was the the deliberate kicking off the Premier League season that led to the 22 wins while focusing on the Europa League. And yes, I mean the trophy is fantastic, man. But the reality is your bread and butter is in the Premier League. It's where you find your stability, whether it's European play or whatever the case may be. And when you take away the positions in the table that actually get you the substantial rewards, there's going to be hell to pay. If you mess with Daddy's bottom line, Dermot, there's going to be hell to pay.
Yeah, that is so true. What's the point, Dermot? What's evening, Dermot? Big up to you and evening, Steve, as well. If Levy lets Ange stay, he would have saved about 60 million otherwise who could buy another baby. As much as we're all grateful for Ange winning this trophy, you cannot ignore 22 league defeats. You just cannot do it. Big up Spurs diehards. Big up to you. Good evening. Big up Adrian. Good evening, Dermot and Steve and extra and all. Big up to you. And then Spurs always pretend to go for grade A, but buy and play Debo. Well, it hasn't get going yet. We will see. Right. Let's crack on with this, guys. Now, this is it, Steve. This was Ange Ball. This was sort of Ange's formation, wasn't it? A 4-3-3 either 4 at the back, 3 across the middle, and 3 up front, or that one holding defender, or two holding players and 1 in the middle. You can switch it round to whatever you like. But can you understand where we got conceded so many goals last season? We're so high up the pitch, aren't we?
Yeah, well, that is the traditional way Ange plays in a 4-3-3 holding. Essentially, Ange never typically uses a double pivot. He did in a different context and towards the latter end of the season. But the reality is he'll play three. He'll play 3 high, 2 wingers hugging the touchline with essentially 2 10s playing through the center of the park. The biggest problem is that way is when you play that high, you leave yourself exposed, not only on the back line, but also through the middle of the park as well too. And if you don't necessarily have those two-way midfielders that can also attack, but also know how to drop back into space. And we saw what happened. Liverpool showed the entire world just exactly how to play against an Ange Postecoglou high attacking. Yeah. So,
and also Tottenham were the lowest team in the Premier League to use kickouts from the back, from the goalkeeper, Vicario. He always tried to pass it out the back, which always led to errors. But under Thomas Frank, that might change a bit, because under a Thomas Frank system, say he plays 5 at the back, right? A 5-3, a 5-2-1-2, right? Formation with wing backs. It gives Vicario more option, doesn't it? Because if you look at it, the right centre back with the wing back and the defensive middle becomes a triangle, and so does on the left side, and it gives him more angles, doesn't it, to pass out. But Brentford were one of the biggest teams for kicking the ball long last season, so there's another option for Vicario. Does a Thomas Frank system suit us better than an Ange system? I think, does it suit our players better? And I think it does, if you look at it that way, because you could quite easily go into zones, which is Thomas Frank's sort of how he likes to set up teams, to go into little triangles, and it does spread teams open, doesn't it? And it gives us other options to go into them spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing that you're going to notice are the addition of 2 wing backs flanking up both sides. They're going to be two-way players. So as they drop back, they're going to have a back 5. But the interesting thing is it gives you flexibility to use a double pivot if you want to play one with potentially 2-6 or an 8 and a 6. But here's the crazy thing, right? So 2 up top doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see 2 strikers, right? One of them can be that false 9 hybrid 10. And if you want to roll with 2 10s, you can. You're more than welcome to do that. Yeah, that's the interesting thing, right? Playing in a system like this gives you flexibility depending on your opponent. So if you want to be a little bit more defensive, a little bit more counterattacking, you have the ability, to essentially to play 2 6s low on top of your back 5. So essentially, you're essentially putting 7 behind the ball, if not 8. But that being said, as you attack, or if you want to be more of an attacking unit, you can literally roll with 2 10s, an 8 and a 6, or you can just have 2 strikers, 2 10s and 6, things like that, right? So I mean, that's the to me that's the beauty of Frank ball, right? There's flexibility in playing a 3-5-2. Mainly the options are I mean, shit, the sky's the limit, man.
Yeah,
that's what I like about it, because there's so much flexibility with it.
Yeah, I mean, Jessica's here. You can see him using the 3-4-3 with Donnelly being used in left midfield. I can see that quite easily, and you can see that a 3-4-3. But it's all about giving Vicario options from the back. Now, last season, I know guys you can't see it, but last season when Vicario kicked it out here, you had 2 players pressing the fullback and the centre back, and same on the right side. This year, under plays this system, it gives him multiple angles to get the ball out if he wants to play it out, but also he can play it long, which the teams are stretching, which I think they did it against Manchester United. in 2022, where they played it out, they played in little triangles, and they were stretching the front three of Manchester United, and leaving gaps in behind to let their runners go into that gaps, to let them break on a counter attack. So Brentford have been very difficult to play against. You look at the 2-2 draw we had at Ange's first game, and since we played them in the Premier League, we haven't had really much success against them, have we? They've been a difficult team to play against and rarely organised. And I'm looking forward to see how Thomas Frank does set up the first game. But this is just one formation, isn't there? There's quite a few he uses, isn't there?
Yeah, for
when
sure.
it comes to
For sure, yeah, and you know, I think I was reading somewhere with Thomas Frank is that the two main formations that he will play are a 3-5-2 or a 4-3-3, depending on the opponent. And when you look at the, don't get me wrong, I think last year he used 6 different formations, but those two were the main formations that he used for a majority of the season. And as you're seeing right here. On slide 3, and this is in the buildup, and as you can see, and it looks like above the striker as they're working that ball up the pitch. As you can see, the ball movement that's going from your left hand side to your right hand side, and of course your third center back right there has got his hands up, and then you can also see the wing back that's playing up the pitch a little bit right here. And it just gives you an idea of the space that Thomas Frank tries to create with the 3 in the back system. And then, of course, you have your midfield too right there. I don't know, man. Like, a part of me is actually quite excited because I actually think we have the roster that does necessarily have the flexibility in order to do exactly what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I think it also gives us flexibility to I think be a bit more defensively sound. Though I'm not saying we weren't. If you look in Europe last season under Ange, the last 3 games in the run to the final, we kept clean sheets all the way from home. Frankfurt, Bodo, and Manchester United in the final. So we could do it, but I think under Thomas Frank, as it says, they're having 4 central midfielders, 2 holding, the 2 attacking, creates more options in the center and less space between the players, which is very true. I mean, this one here, this is another option of Brentford against Arsenal last year, and as you can see, they've got a lot of space on that one side.
Correct.
And as you can see. Just the way that the ball movement was played, it inadvertently overloaded Arsenal to one side of the field. And you're absolutely right. Look at the bottom. Look at the bottom screen. As that ball is working back to the left hand side, you see the space that's available to attack down the left hand side. But notice the midfield 3, because it looks like up top. Up top, it looks like they're playing a 2 striker system with a 2-10 system, and then you have 2 different wing backs, and then there's the 6. So attacking essentially it's a 2-4-1-3 attacking, and depending on the switch, you're always going to have one side of the field that's going to be open for attack. Yeah, that is true. We've got, just see here, we've got what's the point saying, keep in mind that Frank doesn't have Memembo or Waza anymore, as both get 40 goals between the last 2 seasons. That's so true. That is a very good point.
We might end up with a demo. We'll see.
No, I think I think we'd be lucky to. I think the date's been set for his medical. I don't think them and Manchester United, Brentford are too far away from agreeing the deal. And he's set his heart on. He's already said to people that he wants to go to Manchester United. I don't think if he doesn't go to United, I think he stays at Brentford. I don't think he moves. I don't know about Waza, where he's going or if he will move. That's something we'll have to see what happens as the summer window continues. We need to go to Aston Villa and pull out all the tools for Morgan Rogers, and Aston Villa need to sell some players. Yeah, as I said, the end of the financial year is now coming very soon. Big up to Giants. Spurs will definitely need more accurate firepower up front. I think defensively under Frank, these players we already have will be better. Yeah, I think so too. I think defensively we're going to be very sound this year. Very difficult to score against, and we need to go to Rodgers and pull out all the stops to get Morgan Rogers. Sure, Spurs, I agree with you 100%. I quite like him. I think he'd be a good fit for Tottenham. Now, Brentford often rotates in their build-up, finding new formations to confuse the opponents. They also adapt to their opponent's formation to create a number advantage in different areas. Now, this was against Chelsea, I think, last season, and they really have, haven't they? They've matched Chelsea man for man. As you can see, but again, it's all about spaces, isn't it, Steve? It's all about space,
and it is. And again, when you look at it in the build-up and attacking forward, it's a 3-1-4-2. Two high tens with your wingbacks on the flank, and depending on exactly how that ball is going to be played to either side, it gives you options. Because as this ball is going down the right-hand side, naturally you would see where the player that's about to receive the ball, you would just expect that to be dumped out to the right-hand side. But as that ball's coming in, you actually have options, right? Because naturally the defense is going to shift to the right-hand side. So they can either play it down low or play it forward, depending on the weighted pass with that wing back running forward, or it can switch to the left-hand side and catching your defenses out of, you can catch a defense out of guard, right? So it just depends exactly how well the player is going to be marked as soon as he receives the ball, determines which direction he's going to go. But that being said, you have as this ball is played forward, essentially what you can say is this guy ends up being the pivot guy, because either your second 10 is going to come down to make a touch, or it's going to get played forward to the right side wing back, or he can turn in. Try to drive upfield and then play the switch over to the left-hand side. And when you're looking at this, it's like, okay, cool. There is definitely space. Or if you wanted to drop it back to the 6 who's coming forward to get a better look, either to play it down the right-hand side or switch it to the left-hand side. So at this point, it almost creates a triangle of different options that this ball handler is about to make. And either way, either direction he goes, there's going to be space created in order for Spurs and able to get forward and to be put in advantageous positions.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it's one way to do it, but it's just this amount of space, and we're putting players out of position as well, because players have to follow who they're marking. So we're making spaces as we're doing that. So if you look at the player on the wing there, or the Chelsea player running up to him, you've got two players running. Then you've got another one running in the middle for the player in the center. That leaves a gap then on the other side for them two Brentford players to get in. It is a very good, very good. That is probably Frank Ball, how he does it all into one. Big up to Anthony Lynch as well. Evening, lads. Greens from West Cork. Big up to you, Anthony. Giant says, do you think Spurs would be able to go and get Harvey Elliott? If so, would he come to Spurs? I don't think Harvey Elliott's leaving Liverpool, fine, in my opinion. If he does leave Liverpool, I think he's only going to somewhere bigger than Liverpool. You, Steve, Harvey Elliott? I mean, I like him to come to Spurs, but I don't think he is coming to Spurs.
I don't either. I don't see that at all. Me personally, right? I don't think I've ever heard the link between both club and player, and so it begs the question of whether or not Harvey Elliott would even consider a team like Spurs.
Yeah. Big up to Jessica as well. Kubu. Oh, I like Kubu. I'd love Kubu to come to Tottenham. Can't see it, but I would love him to come to Tottenham. Little speed merchant. Kubu from Rio Sociedad. We should go for him. Heard we were looking in January. We were looking at him in January, but nothing came of it. I would love him to come to Tottenham. I think he's a right little live wire. And I think he'd be a great ringer as well. So, Jessica, you and me are up for that, so hopefully that can come true for us. Big up to Audio Austin. Evening, chaps. Big up to you. Greg Giant says, hit the like and subscribe if you enjoyed the stream. Thank you so much, Giant68. Very kind of you. He also says England are 2-0 up now. Anthony Lynch says, as a deal done, Dermo. Are you saying to me it's done, or has it been announced as still done? So let me know, because I've received no confirmation. Don't know if you've seen anything about that. It's been done, Steve, do you?
No, I have
Well,
not.
anyway, so he says, can't wait. Well, hopefully we might get that. And then Adrian saying England are 1-0 up. So that goal must have been ruled out then for VAR offside or whatever. Right, now the high back line. Now, look, I know we played a high back line under Ange Postecoglou, but there is a way of playing it. And there is a way of doing it that you don't get yourself caught out. Now, a massive aspect of Brentford's high back line is they keep a high back line. This helps in the counter press because they get closer to the centre. Now, as you can see here, this is against Luton. I think at home to Luton. Now, Steve, you can see there all the Brentford players, but you see the back three really pushing up high.
Correct.
Now, it does put the other team under pressure, doesn't it, when they've got the ball to get it out, because they could lose it. But that means that we can then quickly pick up the ball and press on the advantage that we've already got. So this is the right way to play a high back line, isn't it? And,
Well,
and there is a difference between this and Ange ball.
Well, the problem with the Ange ball is when you look at the center backs, their spacing was just a little wide.
Yeah.
And then when you looked at the wing backs, one was always inverted while the other was going down the field. The interesting thing about this is that it because there wasn't enough time to cover space, we were always susceptible to breakout passes, which required Van de Ven, to bomb backwards, to try to eat up space. And in this situation, it's designed almost as you see where the ball is. It's almost designed for two jerseys to essentially being able to be close enough to collapse on the ball, right? It's I guess you can say it's called a mid block, right? So the reality is it's interesting, right? Because if there's a turnover high, and depending where their outlet is, right, is going to determine whether or not we're going to be able to eat up that space and get back into position. But that being said, the way that everything is more compact through the center of the pitch means that there's not going to be enough space for them to actually being able to have time to try to clear the ball out, to try to play something out over the top. We're going to have defenders there to essentially collapse on the ball. So it's I don't know. Yeah, I would like to think it's different, but that being said, I mean, as you see in the picture, they're playing movement, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit more. I think it's a bit more. I think there's a bit more thought than Angie's idea of bombing forward all the time. I think there's a bit more structure to this high back line, and a bit more thought gone into it instead of pushing attack. But this is it again. It's numbers advantages, isn't it? Another massive aspect of Brentford's high back line is their ability to create number advantages against the opposition defensive line. Their front five naturally becomes number superior against a back four, which they are great at taking advantage of. And again, you see here, this is a 5 against a 4, and there's players that we've outnumbered them. And again, if you look at the way we're setting an attack. It's all little zones, isn't it? It's all more or less little triangles, numeral zones, he calls it.
Right.
And everyone has their responsibility for that aerial zone that they're in. That's your job. You look after it. And we see here, Steve, that if this was Ange, now we did try 5 at the back versus Everton. We lost 3-0. But I think this is more of a structured 5, isn't it? It's more of a structured way of defending. So if you look at here, it's a bit more. How can I put it? It's more like Ange ball, but made for adults, if you know what I mean. As much as we're a bit more excited by Ange ball, this is one with a bit more structure to it and a little bit more thought put into it. But it does prove it can work if it's done in the right way. We've got here when defending teams are positioned on side, the weak side fullback becomes vulnerable to the long switch play due to the 1 versus 2 against Brentford's wide players and attacking midfielders. Again here, Steve, look, if you look at where the ball's going to onto the right-hand side, do you see that player in the middle? He's got two options, hasn't he? He can either go left or right, but it's still creating space, isn't it? For the other player to run into.
Right. And the interesting thing about this is, right, so again, it's the ability to switch. As you can see, the overload is going down on the left-hand side, and you can see where the defenders are moving to. And so the switch obviously allows defenders, right? You're spacing defenders. And so now it gives you the option to have that striker attack the right channel, right? So it can be either be played in by a cross, or it can be played in through a weighted through ball, depending on which direction that striker moves in. But again, that's exactly what the system is aligned to do, which is essentially spread defenses and get them moving side to side, depending on exactly where you want the ball to play, and in space, again, because that's what it does, is it creates space. And as you can see, there's the three in the back with the two holding, and then you have wing back high up, and then you have the bottom wing back on the bottom, and then that's the correct play right over the top. Switching to the right-hand side, deep down the right-hand side, and what it ends up doing is, as you can see, it's going to pull away the top center back right there, because he's going to have to try to close down space, which is going to allow that wing back to either ping one in, depending on the run. It looks like it's going to go to the near post right there, and essentially what that does is then all of a sudden you're going to have this false nine make a run into the box as well too. On top of that left wing back is going to flank down all the way down. So you're going to have two different options in the box, one centrally, one at the back post. And so it's essentially what this does is it's going to allow different running options into the box. And so me personally, I'm excited to see exactly how, especially like if we're going to use this diagram in a vacuum, right? So the question is like, so now I'm thinking about Pedro Porro down the right-hand side. And as we know, Pedro Porro can play a ball into the box, right? Yeah. So you're looking at Dominic Slanky not moving deep to make a touch. He's just going to play off the shoulder of a defender and make a run in, right? So the question is, is this going to allow Dominic Slanky freed up to I guess you can say, be a poacher? But that being said, it's also going to be James Madison playing in a little bit more centrally into the box. So if Slanky needs to hold up in the box, he can lay it off to James Madison to put one in, or Pedro Porro is going to have that option of Madison or, say, Destiny Udogie on the backside.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And I am very taken. Just a quick, let's go into chat just for a minute. Big up to you, Brenny. Big up, Brenny. Hope you're doing. You're a legend, man. It says, good evening, gents. Big up, Brenny. Hope you're doing well. Jantin just asking, Dermo. Look, as far as I'm saying, it's 95% done. We won't know till probably early next week. And I've been told next week's going to be busy, like a busy bee, which is all we want to hear. Giant said, no, 2-0 to England. Could easily be 4-0 against Germany. Wow. Under 21 World Cup final, England 2, Germany 0. Is it the World Cup or the under 21 European Championships? I'm not sure. Elliot Hutchinson with goals. Good evening, Dermo and Stephen Chat. Big up to Hogcott 10. Jessica says, Brentford have been great to watch. Yeah, they are. One thing about Brentford, they are good to watch, and they're not a boring team to watch, are they? Really? And I think Thomas Frank has done absolutely brilliant job at Brentford. He really has. Who's taken over now? Their set piece coach is now the Irish international, Anthony Keith, I think his name is, has taken over the job. So he really has big shoes to fill there. Do you think Brentford are going to struggle without Thomas Frank there next season? Because I think they will.
I don't think so at all, right? Brentford's almost like Brighton, where they have a system that's going to has already been in place, right? From their owner to their director of football to their technical director to their head coach. Yeah. This team is heavily reliant on data, right? Data not only that's going to allow them to be able to find diamonds in the rough as far as their advanced scouting, but also same with their coaches as well too. It's almost a system where you can plug and play, right? It's the idea that allowed Brighton to move on from Graham Potter to Damien Hertzler. And it's the same thing that's going to be at Brighton. So they're going to identify the next coach that's going to step in and be able to continue to play Brighton style, dependent on the type of players that they're going to continue to bring in. So me personally, I don't necessarily think that Brentford's going to struggle or get relegated or anything like that. So no.
Well, it's a new manager. He's never managed before in any league. So he's making his bow. So look, I understand what you're saying. I probably agree with you. They won't struggle, but they won't. I think they'd be round the bottom half of the table. I don't think they're the top half, top 10. But you don't know. I mean, the Premier League's a funny beast, doesn't it?
Brighton is going to be that team. It's not Brighton, excuse me. Brentford's going to be that team that's going to be somewhere between 9th and 14th, somewhere in that area. I don't think they're going to be. I don't think they're going to be in that 15 to 17 range where you're potentially in a relegation scrap. Because I think that even if Mbemo leaves, and even I think Mbemo was he may have been their leading goal scorer with 20 last year.
He was,
but they still have Wissa. And they still have a lot of talented players there that were the main core of that team. So again, it's going to be that same situation where even if Mbemo leaves, they're going to identify a new young player that's going to be able to step in and develop. That's that is the model in which Brentford uses. Again, it's they're not going to light the world on fire as far as transfers goes, but they're going to identify the next. Or if they already have the next in, and it's just going to be plug and play, and they're going to continue to play the same style of football because that's the way Brentford plays. So it's like I just don't see them. I don't see them taking a massive drop off and getting into a relegation scrap. But would you be surprised if they finished 12th? No, it's about right for Brentford.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, to be fair. But I just think they're going to struggle without Thomas Frank. I really do. And a few players that have sold this summer. I think losing Nogard to Arsenal, I think that's going to be a big loss for them in the midfield. And I think the player that's going to Manchester United, they're going to lose him. They lose Wazza as well, which I think Tottenham could go after him and bring him to Tottenham. I think he would follow Thomas Frank. I think Keith Andrews, that's his name. That's the new manager, Keith Andrews. I think that's his name. But I just think, I don't know. I know what you're saying. I do get what you're saying, but I think Brighton's a bit of a different kettle of fish. I think Brentford really have punched above their weight for a lot of it. I think that they've done well since coming into the Premier League, but Thomas Frank was a no-no manager when he took over, got them promotion and stabilised them. I think they should have been better going after like a Graham Potter or somebody like that. That's Premier League experience. I think Graham is still with West Ham, correct? Yeah, he is. But I'm just saying, I know he's at West Ham. But the point I'm getting at, I think going with a new manager that doesn't know anything. What happens if Brentford are fighting for relegation in the first 6 months? Do you stick with that manager or do you pay him out? He signed a 3-year deal. Do you pay him off and then bring another manager in? And is the horse bolted from the stables? I get what you're saying. I don't think they will, but I think if you look on the flip side, I look at him, and of course Keith Andrews, who is he's very much ingrained with the Irish program. Mm-hmm. Was an assistant with the MK Dons. He was the assistant manager with the Ireland U20 and then he was assistant manager with the senior team. Was at Sheffield United in 2023. And then he's been the technical coach at Brentford for at least one full season. So he understands what Brentford's all about, and I probably would say that he was brought in to potentially be that next to begin with anyway. So I just look at this as something that Brentford, that's the thing. It's like Brentford is playing, is essentially playing 3D chess, understanding one moves ahead. It's understanding that, eventually Thomas Frank is probably going to be taking off, and so you bring in that next to come in, be ingrained in the system, understand exactly how they're going to play, understanding the players. So he's already been there for a year, so he probably has relationships with the players. And I would probably think that, again, it's plug and play. So It's all about the team they put behind him, isn't it? It's all about the members of staff. Do they give him, look, because Frank's took his team with him. It's all about getting the best staff around him. Is he going to have a staff that's going to be experienced to see him through the hard times? But look, I know
I would like to think so because, when you look at Brentford's owner, the director of football, their technical director, all of those guys have been in place for 8 years already. Right, so there's no fluidity within their front office, right? So there's a lot of stability there at Brentford. So I would just assume that they're going to continue to do what they've done since Thomas Frank has been around Brentford, which is 8 years himself. So
I think it's good. I will look. It's more on the podcast. We'll talk more about the Brentford and the new manager and where it does leave them. Big Bad Ron, any news on transfer yet? Have we signed any more puppies? Everything's gone quiet. Everything has gone quiet. I'm expecting to go mental from Monday sort of late night into Tuesday. I'm expecting next week. I've been told it's going to be busy, so we're going to be busy on the channel. Greg says Carsley sets up England under 21s. Well, they're constantly on the front foot. Yeah, Lee Carsley, another Irish international, another Irish man. Doing well again for England, doing great jobs with the under 21. Lee Carsley was in the running to become our national team manager, but we didn't get him. And we got who we got. But I think Lee Carsley will be an Ireland manager in the near future. I think he's a great manager, and I think he sets his teams up well. And I'm really annoyed that the FAI never went out and made sure we got him, because we don't have many great Irish managers, in the game. And to have Lee Carsley is doing very well. And again, England to their second European final as champions as well. I think he deserves all the credit in the world, but I really love him to be Ireland manager one day, and I think he will be. Big Bad Run, I believe England are defending champions. They are defending champions, so it's great for him. Back to back, looks like they're going to be retaining that title. He says, I think we'll finish anywhere between 10th and 15th. I think we're finishing top 5. I said it earlier. I think we're going to be tough to play against this season. And also, I don't think you'll see Manchester United down the bottom either. I think you'll see them in the top 10 too. I really do. I really do.
I don't know.
I just think the Premier League's such a funny beast that last year, did anyone expect Nottingham Forest to be up in the Champions League? Nobody called that at all.
Right. I think Nottingham Forest is going to continue to be in that top 6. Nottingham Forest, it's weird because I think under Nuno that whole program has taken a different spin. But here's the thing with the Big Bad Ron. In his 2 statements where he says we'll finish here anywhere between 10th and 15th. And then, of course, the plan is for Levy to stick with Frank for this season until Poch is available. The reality is, here's the interesting thing about this, right? If Tottenham finish in those spots and are not competitive on any of the 4 competitions, that would be disastrous. That would be absolutely disastrous. It shows no improvement off this last season. And essentially lets everybody know just exactly where this team is at that point in time. And it would mean that Thomas Frank was not good enough to come in and elevate the level of the youth that are here. And would that put them in a position where they would chase Poch in the summer of 2026 after the World Cup? In a position where now in back-to-back seasons you're replacing the manager and his staff again. You know what I mean? Like on top of being in a position where let's say they're finishing 15th, right? And so now you have to do it again. It essentially means that you're in utter disarray. You know what I mean? Your club is in utter disarray. And that's the weird thing. It's like, I don't know if Poch is available to come in and fix it in one season. Me personally, I don't think Thomas Frank is here for one season. I think that let's say that he finishes 10th. Well, the reality is that you're going to have to at least to give him another season, if not another season after that, right? Like, we have to stop the carousel. We have to stop the carousel of firing managers after a potential low season. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't think Poch is going anywhere from the USA job. I think if he does leave the USA, he may get a job in the MLS league anyway. I think that's probably a given.
No. Like,
I
so Poch is not leaving the U.S. before the World Cup. That's just
No, I know that. I mean, after
Yeah.
the World Cup. I mean,
Yeah,
after if he is to move on, he may want to stay in America. He may like it there. He's close to
doubt it.
Argentina.
I doubt it. I would assume that he comes back to come back to Europe. There's probably going to be suitors for him. But that being said, yes, he does want to return to Tottenham at some point, right? But that being said, he also said that he also doesn't want to continue to bail out Tottenham as well too. So one of the things and that's, to me, that's telling, right? To me, that is very telling that he doesn't necessarily want to be a savior. He actually Poch actually wants Tottenham to be stable. He wants to, like, if he has to come in, he wants to be in a stable atmosphere.
Yeah, I'd be honest with you. I don't want Poch back at Spurs. I think he's had his time. He's had his. I would. I think if you're bringing Poch back, then you're going back. Then you're admitting you made a mistake all them years ago by getting rid of him in the first place. And
I think they've already done that, though, Jerome. I think Spurs already admitted it, right? Because Mourinho didn't last. Mourinho lasted what, 18 months? Conte didn't last. Nuno didn't last. Ange didn't last. I think just by the fact that we've had a coaching carousel, I think in that is announcing to the world that you made a mistake by letting Poch go.
Yeah, and also Ange Postecoglou was our longest-serving manager since Pochettino. He lasted 2 full seasons. No manager between Poch and Ange. Nobody lasted more than 2 full seasons. So, look, I'm grateful for what Poch brought us on the road. He brought us on, but I very much he's done. Thank you for what you did. I don't think going back. I think going back may spoil it, but that's just my opinion. I wish him all the very best.
Do you know what I like about him? It's the accountability, right? So Poch demands excellence all the time, especially in training. He actually has a training sessions that are legendary for being tough. The reality is he expects every single player to put out his best. And if he doesn't feel that even a senior player that is just not going to work out, he has no problem moving on from that player. So just imagine if Poch were to come in and say, "Sorry, James Madison, you're just not good enough. We're dropping you." And I would rather play a guy like Jamie Donnelly because it just makes more sense. Because I know for a fact I'm going to get his very best. Right? To me, that's what I like about Poch is the accountability. And his no nonsense on handling players, because it's not personal, it's business. There is a demand, and if you do not meet them, you will not play. And I think that's what shaped Tottenham under Poch, was the fact that he was not scared at all to go to youth.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I get what you're saying. I just don't think. Look, I'm not a big fan of going back to managers coming back to a club when you sacked him for a reason. I understand. Look, he may leave. Yeah, I mean, also, I think if the Argentinian job came up after the World Cup, he may want, if that come up, he would be an Argentinian himself, Argentinian captain of the 98. He played in the 94, the 98 World Cup for Argentina. I think he would jump at that. But I think he may find international football suits him more. And I think I look forward to see what he does in the World Cup next year. He's in the quarterfinals of the Gold Cup with the US this year. I think he's sort of he's flattered to deceive since he left Tottenham. I think he went to PSG, where anyone can win anything at PSG. You and me, Steve, could go there as a double act, right? And we can win the league and the cups at PSG. I mean, there's really no other teams capable of playing PSG. So, and he didn't even get that in his first season. He got that in his second season. I think as much as Poch years were brilliant, we should have won a trophy under him. We should have won the league. We should have won the Champions League final. I just think his time is done. Look, if he comes back, I'll support him. He'll be our manager, and I'll give him 100%. But I don't like the idea of him coming back. I think we're under a new era with Thomas Frank, and we have to look forward. And I agree. I look forward, and let's see what the next chapter brings. You know, in hindsight, I was sad. I'm still sad Ange's gone. I am. look, as much as Ange should go for 22 defeats, there's a part of me just wish he was still here. I think maybe that's just being romantic, or maybe me because I believe in
Yeah,
what
sure.
you do, but
Sure.
I don't know.
See,
don't
here's
know.
the thing: as I'm happy with Thomas Frank because we finally have a
Yeah.
manager that is actually matching the ambition of what exactly Spurs are
Yeah.
trying to do, which is build around youth. So from
Mm.
that standpoint, I'm glad that he's here. But what I will say is that I agree with you that this was a hire for stability, and that means that you can't just bail after one season, especially for it.
Exactly.
Like if we finish eighth, yeah, it's not ideal. But that being said, it's like you have to be able to give him a second season to improve on it, and if he does, then you have to give him a third. The reality is, and again, we can't just keep on, chopping and changing.
We have to stick behind one project.
That's exactly right.
I hate using the word project. I hate using the word project. We have to stick behind one manager, and if we don't do that, and I think the one failure for Munich and Levy is apart from Pochettino and apart from Harry Redknapp, every other manager's lasted just under 18 months at Tottenham.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been no stability. Anytime we got stability, we were something to grow. We become successful.
Yeah.
We did that under Harry Redknapp, and we did that under Pochettino. I think we were getting that under Ange, but I think what Thomas Frank, and I'm so sort of surprised he said it, but in another way, I think it was a lovely thing to say and the right thing to say. That he says, I'm standing on the success from Ange Postecoglou. And I think that's him nodding to the past. Right, you built the foundations and put the floors in. I'm now going to build the house. And that's my job. And we always said, didn't we? It'd be the man after Ange that will get success from this squad. And I think Thomas Frank is the man to take us to the next level. After that, then I think if Frank does go and he stays for 3 years and we want to go to another level, then we have to seriously look at who we bring in. But I think I want Frank to be here for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
I would like him to be here. I would like him definitely to be here for the next 3 to 5. What I will say though is that it's interesting because last year there were a lot of fans that were screaming for Harry Redknapp to come back to finish out the season last year.
Yeah.
So, that being said, like if there's trusted names from the past and things are not going right, it's always interesting to see those names coming back up. But I digress from that. Yeah. I just thought that was kind of funny though.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed that. And thanks for whoever put that question in. It was actually a good talking point, actually. So big up to you, sir. I forget who put that in. Who put that in? Was that it was a Big Bad Ron. Big up Big Bad Ron. Thanks for that. Now, attacking the half space. We've seen it a lot last year.
Yep.
About Brennan Johnson being in the right place at the right time. But it's not, we need wingers to attack like here, go down the byline and get the cross in. So you've got the likes of Odegaard and the likes of people like that will do that. So Brentford is a good team in the final third. They create many chances, mainly by attacking the space between the opposition centre-back and full-back.
Yep.
As you can see there's loads of space for that.
That's exactly right.
Right to get in. And then on the second page here, there's a second bit. There's another example for when they're away to Fulham. Now, are you looking at there? So you're looking at your doggy one side and Porro the other. You're probably looking at Brennan Johnson to go into that gap, aren't you? And then you're looking for Solanke and probably James Maddison to fill that gap in the centre, in the 6-yard area.
Right, and you can see it right. You can see it right here. So this would essentially what this would end up being is here's your wing back. And then, especially on the last page, and when you're talking half space, as you saw Brian Mbemo move into that box that's closer to the end line right there, and there's nobody within 10 feet around him, right, which allows him to receive the ball from a weighted pass forward. And what that does is you turn, and then it's going to allow that player, whether that be Brendan Johnson, whoever the case may be, that's going to be able to look and see Solanke, and you're going to see your back post option arrive. That's exactly it. That's exactly moving forward. You're essentially playing with 6 moving forward. And what this ends up doing is it allows a runner to move forward, because now, as you can see, and I believe this is against Fulham right here. As you can see, this center back that center back is supposed to be in that box. It's supposed to be behind the player, but he gets caught, which allows a runner to move forward, and it allows that wing back to play one forward into a space that it's either going to be a little him allowed to dribble forward and put a shot on net, or B, being able to hit that striker that's going to either going to come in front of the keeper, or he's going to go behind the keeper. But there's going to be enough space that as soon as this runner makes this runner receive the ball, he can play it forward into a spot where only a striker is going to be able to receive that ball and put it on net.
And if you're playing two up front and then you got three in, as you can see there, you got one Brentford player going into the gap. You got another one that's pulling off the back of that centre back. So you got that Fulham player trying to cover him. And that leaves the gap then for the player behind that Fulham player to go in at the far post. So that's Brendan Johnson, isn't it? He goes into that far post. And so even there, it's so different from Ange ball, isn't it? But it's more constructive and it's more organized, isn't it? It's more about teams. Yeah,
it's a little bit more compact. But what I will say is that it's a build up with intention, where a lot of times in Ange ball, when we actually were playing Ange ball, it essentially it's designed to do two things. It's actually designed to get the ball in the box in dangerous areas, where sometimes with Ange ball, we weren't necessarily doing that.
No.
We were either playing the ball back because a box down the touchline was blocked up, so we had to play it back, or we were desperately trying to work it central to try to get something into the box that way. And again, this was the downfall of a guy like Brendan Johnson, who rarely put one into the box. But that being said, when this is all this forward movement right here is designed to utilize free space to catch defenders out, so you can actually put yourself in a position where you can actually attack the box instead of react to what defenses are trying to do.
And also, if you see, I think if you look back at last season, and many times when we were attacking down the wing, we went back because there was no players going forward. How many times did we watch alongs, or I did watch alongs either with you or with James or with Kev or by myself? And I've said time again, stop passing back, get into the gap. There was one game against, where was it? I think it was against Liverpool or Newcastle. And I remember Papa Sarr had the ball. He had Brennan Johnson that side, and he had Basuma that side. Now, Basuma was marked, but Brendan Johnson was such an acres of space. But Brendan Johnson didn't want the ball. What did he do? We go back. And I think this is an example of what we will be seeing next season. And I think with Porro, with his crossing ability and his ability, and also Udogie as well, I think we're going to have two of the best win backs in the Premier League. I really do.
The interesting thing is, especially when Kulusevski's ready to hit the ground, and getting back into it. Imagine Kulusevski in his base being on the end of one of those weighted passes in free space, because Kulusevski's got a dangerous foot as well too, whether shooting or playing the ball across the box into more open space. So it's going to be interesting to see this attack and how it plays out, because I think it's going to be. I think three players are going to be the beneficiaries of a lot of goal totals next season.
Yeah, no, I tell you, just give us 2 minutes. Sorry, Steve. Bloody hell. Just trying to build up something on the other monitor just to remind me of something I was going to say about this, and I can't find it now. Anyway, doesn't matter. Move on now. We'll get to chat in a minute, guys. Many plays in the box. The attacking midfielders and wing-backs always look to make runs into the box. When the ball is in the final third, often getting 4 or 5 plays into these areas to create overloads. Now, as you can see here, guys, we've got the Brentford players all red circles around them, and this is Brentford on the attack. Now, as you can see on the left-hand side, we've got the player Brentford just behind the two Liverpool players there, and you've got the player behind. But look how many players are in the box. How many times last season did we have that many players in the box? We didn't, and it was always
especially in the second half. We had very little. And by the way, you're absolutely right. There were plenty of times where, as the ball was being played back and it's on the foot of Van de Ven or Romero, and they're just waiting for somebody to make a forward run, and it just never materialized. But in this picture, this is the interesting thing: is look at where the strikers are positioned. They're camped in the channels right there, right? So if you want to play it short, if you want to play it short centrally, there's a striker, or if you want to play it to the back post, there's going to be a false nine that is going to meet at the back post unmarked, right? But then you also have your 10 right in the front of the box. You have 2 10s, one in the box, one about to enter the box. So you have 4 different options of where that ball is going to go. That's exactly what this team missed last year, right? It's just taking chances, putting a ball in, and actually making something happen, right? And that's the thing where I think Solanke and his height are going to play dividends, especially if you want to go central. But that being said, imagine Matisse Tell on the back post making that run into the channel if you want to go in that direction. Having a dude like that unmarked. So different options.
No, different options. You're spot on. Different options there. Right, let's carry on. We'll get to chat in a minute, guys. Now, this is Brentford scored many of their goals from crosses to the rim back at the back post, which I've already said about Brennan Johnson having a knack to be there at the right time. The opposition fullbacks will often be preoccupied with the Brentford attacking midfielder, which leaves massive spaces at the back post for the wing back to attack. Now, how many times did we see Brentford successfully do this week in, week out, week in? Against many teams. Look, again, we're overloading the penalty box. The defender said, who we're going to mark? You mark him. There's always a man left over. So again, this is something we didn't get on the range. And again,
and look at where the defense is. Look at where the defense is aligned. They're pursuing the ball. So as the ball goes in, you have 1v1 with 2 strikers right at the 6 yard, right at the edge of the 6 yard, and then you have that wing back floating in, and you can see that the wing back is making a run to the back post right there, and his defender is walking. Walking. Right, because he's assuming that the ball is going to go into one of 2 strikers, and completely ignoring that there's a run to the back post right there. And what's going to end up happening is it's going to draw off a center back to the back post, right? Because naturally, this defender that's playing a little bit more centrally is going to notice this back run. And so what's going to end up happening is this striker, this false 9, is going to be left wide open because this defender decided to walk. This defender right here is actually running towards the ball. So he's actually going to be 5 to 10 feet away. And so it's going to either allow the back post runner to be open unmarked, or it's going to allow this false 9 to be open, essentially centrally.
Essentially, And again, I think there's another picture here. Now, Thomas Frank also positions many Brentford players outside the box, ready for second balls and cutbacks. Now, we did see a bit of that under Ange Postecoglou the last 2 seasons. But again, as you see here, look how much space that player's got in the circle. Look how much space. He's got acres of space. But if you look on the outside there, Steve, you've got 2 players running on one Crystal Palace defender or midfielder. So he's outrun already. He's outnumbered. You look in the box, you've got 2 players around that Brentford player, so they're out of the question. You got the one there that he's drawing that defender out. So it's leaving him with a gap to take a shot into the left side of the corner of the goal. So
look at this right here, because he's all alone, not a defender around him as he's coming into the box. And what ends up happening every single time is that ball goes to that open man, it's going to suck defenders forward. And that leaves Brian Mbeumo at the back, open at the back post. So if he wants to make a quick pass to Mbeumo and to get on his right foot, he's got an open net.
Yeah, he
can step in and make a shot himself if he wants to do that.
Exactly. And this is another example of it
Yeah.
here, Steve. This is this was actually against us on the opening day, Ange's first Premier League game. Now, guys, I can't remember if Brentford scored from this. I have a funny feeling they did. I think it was inside the post. But again, look at it there. You've got the defender trying to try to tackle the Brentford player. He gets it into there. It's a massive gap there just to take his time, take the ball, get it under control, and get a shot in. Or dummy it. Just let it roll under and let the player that's coming behind him to have a crack. So I think if you look at it that way, again, it's just another example at the other end of the pitch. But it proves again how flexible Thomas Frank's systems and how flexible it is. And again, it's all about players being in their zonal area, being in their own square, which is, I mean, Thomas Frank says, taking risks. If you don't, is taking the risk anyway. So you're going to have to take a risk. And I think this is very much, is more controlled and more, it's Ange ball, but Ange ball with rules, if you know what I mean. It isn't a case of attack.
I would say that all of this is predicated on quick ball movement, right? So it's not just receive ball and wait for defender to come to come to crash. It's continuously moving the ball, and and in that last slide, again, there's options, right? So you can either take a shot, but what's going to end up happening is that ball comes in, they're going to try to collapse on the ball, which essentially again leaves Mbemo open at the back post.
It does, and I think he's going to be so dangerous at Manchester United next season. I think he's a steal. He's a steal.
I don't think Ruben Amorim is going to last. Sorry.
I think we will, but football's a funny old game. We don't know what's going to happen. Now, corners. Yeah. Now, our Achilles heel last season, how many times did we scream and shout, Steve, doing watch-alongs? For fuck's sake, defend properly. How many times did Vicario come out, not defend his area well? Defenders didn't get to mark their man. How many times? You look at Ipswich. Ipswich, I think it was a free kick, and it was around the back post. Nobody marking him, scored. So Brentford score many goals from corners. They have many different routines, always changing that time over time to prevent being too predictable. Now, I've fully seen this. What this graphic is showing, I think Arsenal did it against. I think in the it wasn't against us, but I also saw it in the Champions League as well, where they all stand off, and I remember saying, "What the fuck are they doing?" Like, and then suddenly they run in. It's a very effective way how to defend corners.
Right.
It really is.
And the reality and the reasoning is because you want to get your defenders moving. You don't want your defenders stationary, because if your defenders are stationary, they can just head the ball out, right? Yeah. And so you're going to have three moving to the front post right here, and you're going to have that one dude that's going to be camped at the back post, but also this dude that's standing outside the 18-yard box. And look how much space he has until he gets to the 6-yard box right here. He has acres of space. So if you wanted to play it more centrally, you have that option to get a guy on the head right there. If you want to play it short, you can play it short, or you can go back post. But the idea is you want to draw defenders away from the ball.
Yeah, and again, Arsenal used that quite successfully under Arteta last year. And I look, don't like Arsenal with Spurs fans, but you have to when tactics are done properly or goals are scored and the routine works, you have to pay credit to that. You have to say, this is how we do it. Under Ange Postecoglou, we were too predictable. We were too predictable. And this is about everyone knew what to do. And at the bottom bit there that gets me, always changing over time to prevent becoming too predictable, which is spot on. There's another one as well for corners. Now, this is them, another version of it.
That's a throw-in right there. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's as a set piece, it's still a threat on the goal, but this is the other way of doing it. This is actually against West Ham United, the same game, I think, at 2-2. But look at the circles, Steve. How many players are there left unmarked? And how many players there are dragging defenders out of their position?
Yeah, well, see, that's the interesting thing, right? But you also look at the space. You also look at where. Yeah, come on, Gerard. Let's be real.
Yeah, but you look I've got them started. Don't worry.
But you look at where Mbemo's tracking in, right? He's tracking to the front side player that can actually corral the ball and lay it off for him, because then you have three at the back right there where you're going to be able to draw defenders out. So it's either going to be Mbemo playing it back, or Mbemo playing it over, or even Mbemo taking a shot on net. So.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. This is now another action option of it. Actually, this is from a free kick. So we've got 3 different variations of us attacking. Now, again, it gets played into that box where the Brentford players can attack. This was away to Nottingham Forest. Again, we didn't see a lot of that last season, did we, Steve? Rarely we didn't. And are you looking forward to it? The more we look at how he sets up, the more we look at his tactics. I'm getting more excited by what Thomas Frank's going to bring to Tottenham next year. And we are going to be very difficult to play against, especially in attack and forward. This is where we need a proper striker. This is where Dominic Solanke, as we were talking earlier today at midday, about Solanke getting into spaces, and this is where players can attack the ball. It's all about attacking your man, attack the area. Because anything can happen in the area.
Yeah, and I just don't want to. I don't want to see what we saw last year, where players weren't committed to getting forward, even on set pieces and free kicks. It almost seemed like we just misused free kicks from advantageous positions, unless it was right outside the 18-yard box where a guy like Madison could try to bang one in from that distance. But that being said. It's going to be overloading over the top. It's going to be trying to push through the middle right there. And the question is whether or not, guys like Dominic Solanke are going to be aggressive enough to get through, because you understand exactly how how this lines up, right? There's going to be two defenders for the striker. But that being said, if you actually have your inside forward and your poacher getting forward and beating their man to the line, there's going to be goals galore.
Yeah, there will be. Now, this is another example. This is the last example. Now, this is from a free kick, I would say, from the goalkeeper. Again, look at the position of the players. 2 holding back there. Then you got that player there. As you see the triangle, he's running into an area where that ball's going to go. So you've got all the players in the middle. The defender's right. You pick him up. You pick him up. You pick him up. But that player there, that is at the tip of the triangle, if you know what I mean. If you're looking at it from my side, from the stand right, he's running into a space, and that's where that ball's going. And then it gives the player then on the opposite side, he can swing round his defender and get into that gap for that cross going in. So, look, all of this area here is very much all about zonal, about owning your area. Each box, that's why Thomas Frank has the pitch at Brentford done as it does, because he does boxes. He said, this is your box, this is your area. That's your job to do it for the full 90 minutes. I was watching them last night as well. He was being interviewed and he was asked, do you have a plan A? He says, I have a plan A, plan B, and plan C. I have my 5 substitutes already mapped out in my head who I'm going to bring on. But he says the biggest thing you have to do as a manager is to be adaptable and be quick to rejig. And he's very good at changing formations through matches. You look at Man City, you look at Manchester United through the heyday, you look at Liverpool. Liverpool changed their formations 2, 3, 4 times during the game.
Yep.
And we didn't. And as much as I love Ange, as much as I'll always will love Ange, we become too predictable to play against. And I think that's the problem where we lost so many games, because teams figured this out very easily.
Yeah, and that was the problem, right? We are who we are.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, that's great, but you actually have to be fluid. You can't be married, because there's going to be situations where you're going to have to adapt. There were times where I thought we should have been a little bit more defensive after, we have a 2-goal lead, because the last thing you want to do is allow a team to get back into it late. But it is what it is. What I will say that I like the fact that Thomas Frank is not married to one style of play, right?
Yeah.
So this is like the hallmark of a good coach, right? Because you're going to have a game plan to start. And 10 minutes in, you're going to know whether or not that game plan is actually going to work. And if it's not, it's the ability to throw away the game plan and say, okay, well, wait a second. If we continue to do this within the next 10 minutes, we're going to lose the lead because they're doing a good job of overloading one side, and we can't necessarily get people to cover up, to cover that space. So they're constantly just attacking in through the midfield or down the wing. And so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to switch this up. We're actually going to need to play in a double pivot because in order for us to score goals, it's going to have to come out. It's going to have to come through in a counterattacking style. But essentially, what we're going to have to do is make sure that midfield is closed down and it's tight. It's tight. I would rather defend on the touch lines than trying to defend. Trying to defend through the middle of the park if teams are just absolutely gashing us through the middle of the field. And to me, I like that. It's a hallmark of a good coach. I'm sorry, it is.
Yeah, it is. It is a hallmark. Look, Ange is a good coach. Ange is a very successful coach. Won everywhere he's gone. The likes of Mourinho and Conte didn't, but Ange says, I have won everywhere I've done. Now, this is the low press. Now, how many times over the last years that you've been following Spurs, I've been following Spurs, we're never able to break down a low block side. But in a low press, Frank's Brentford uses a 1-5-3-2 formation. They look to set up in a low block, always trying to close the center, focusing on the opposition out wide. Now, if you look at this is against Arsenal, Brentford home to Arsenal. Look how they're set up there, Steve. They got the back five there, then they got the three, and then they got the two.
And you can see the two main Arsenal strikers. One's trying to move forward, so you have your wing back that's dropped back. But then there's your mid three. Two of them are tasked to making sure that no balls are going to be able to get played through the middle of the park, leaving this midfielder right here to be able to go down in space to cover this area right here, as this center back is going to move back to cover the post, and this central center back right here is going to be able to come over and for relief to make sure that this striker is not going to be able to get the ball in space. So essentially, what's going to end up happening is you're going to see good movement with this midfielder basically playing through this center back and this wing back right here to cover off that winger from being able to skin a man and getting into the box around the corner, because that's what this dude's job is to play back. And essentially that leaves two center backs on one striker, because this striker over here is being guarded by that wing back and the left center back right here. So, this is, this right here is just understanding exactly where your opponent's going to try to attack into space and making sure there's a defender there.
Yeah, and as you can see the triangles. You can see them all set up as a triangle.
Yep.
So you've got them three there. You got every Brentford player has a man, apart from the Brentford player in the center. Who's the sweeper
and it works out beautifully too if they try to play it back too, because as you can see where the winger's carrying the ball, naturally if it's cut off, he's going to try to play it back to this center back right here, and then you have striker one, and then you also have midfield one. So it's essentially means that Arsenal is going to have to continue to play backwards, which is exactly what you want them to do. You want them to have to reset.
Yeah, exactly. We've got here, this is another example against Chelsea, exactly the same thing. And as you can see, it's all about Brentford players staying in their zone, in the box, like pretend box. And again, defending. I mean, again, how easily can Brentford cancel out this Chelsea attack? Again, there's another Brentford, player left over.
Yeah.
So we can see, we weren't seeing this under Ange Postecoglou last season. It was, and that is why we conceded 60-odd goals last year, because defensively we weren't. I wouldn't say we weren't. We were on. What's the word I'm looking for? We weren't. Not acceptance. What's the word I'm looking for? We weren't responsible. The players didn't take responsibility for their defensive duties, what they're supposed to do.
Well, especially on the right-hand side. Especially on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
How many times did we see Pedro Porro being left on an island? Especially with Romero out, so there was no backside cover. And it was either Dragusin or Archie Gray, who are, let's be real, Dragason's is not good enough to be able to handle that. And so essentially what you saw teams attack down the left-hand side all the time, because they knew Brennan Johnson wasn't going to track back. And so Pedro Porro was left essentially on an island, going 1v2 constantly. And in this picture right here, you see Enzo Fernandez, who's playing off the left of the center back, and then there's Mark Cucurella all the way down there. And so you see right wing back down in the corner right there. You see Nico Jackson covered by two center backs right in the middle of the pitch, and then you see the left midfielder right here who's playing to the ball player. And essentially what this does is if the ball goes to Enzo Fernandez, this guy peels off to Fernandez, which means he's going to have to either play back to the center back or try to hit Cucurella. And if he goes Cucurella, what ends up happening is this midfielder again attacks this line and gets into space right here.
Yeah,
which is going to free two center backs to make sure Nico Jackson can't make a run. And it means that they're either going to have to play it back and reset, or they're going to have to figure out a way, right? Because you could see Cole Palmer right here is being covered by two, and then you see this right winger right here is being covered by two as well too. So regardless, what ends up happening is it means that Chelsea's going to have to reset, or they're going to try to play a ball in. And when you're looking at these three attacking players, they are guarded by 6 Brentford defenders.
Yeah, you can see that. And again, you can see it. You can see the little triangles. You can even see the centre midfield. There's 4 players around 2 Chelsea players. Centre backs, there's 2 centre backs on 1 Chelsea player each. And even if he crossed the ball from right to left or left to right, you still got that midfielder who's free. You can see him running off block on that angle. You've got the central defender or the fullback running in with him. And then all that centre half has to do is just jog back, pick up the man that the other defender has left. And again, in the centre, if Chelsea tried to run through the centre, again, the Brentford defender at the back of the Chelsea player drops back and blocks off that route. So you can see how well,
they're defensively organized, right? They're defensively organized. There's 10 behind the ball. I mean, essentially, it's essentially a low block. But the most telling thing is that all 3 of their most dangerous players are guarded by six Brentford defenders. With essentially Enzo Fernandez and Marc Cucurella being guarded 1v1, but the reality is where that ball movement goes means that midfielder is going to have to eat up space. That's not going to allow them to get around the corner, and it also requires them to play across into heavy traffic, which means that ball's going to get headed out and probably cleared.
Yeah, it will. No, it's a good point. And I hope people enjoy it. Look, I'll be honest with you, I've never been great at tactics, so I'm learning. I know Steve's probably a bit better than me. James is really good at it. But I'm a tactics novice. So putting this together, I'm teaching myself about tactics, teaching myself how to look at games differently, which will improve me when I'm doing the watch alongs next season to give you guys a bit more insight to what's happening. But as you can see, again, well organized, players responsible for their jobs, and they're in their square boxes again, all about boxes, all about zonal, doing your area and protecting your area, which I think a lot of Tottenham players last season didn't do. This is now 10 players in the box. This was away to Burnley. Again, Steve, just very quickly, you see the Brentford players in blue there. Another, isn't it? It's a 4-3-1. But
that's a 5. It's 1, 2, 3. Well, there's 5 at the back, 3 in the middle.
Oh, 5.
And then there's and it looks like they only have 9 back. But you can see that every Burnley player is marked.
Yeah, it is, and it is doing this really shocked me. Like, now squeezing the pitch. How many times have we heard squeezing the pitch at Tottenham? Never. It's gaping holes like. It's like running through the Red Sea being parted by Moses opening the Red Sea. That's how open we were at times. But Frank's Brentford always looks to squeeze the pitch when defending. This means consistently pushing the team up as much as possible when defended. We've got 2 arrows there, Steve, for Burnley trying to play the ball forward. But look at the two Brentford strikers there. One of them running into intercept that ball, and that other player there is going to cut off that option. Then if if Burnley want to pass it there. So you can see the press, the high press, how it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to work, which we didn't see a lot of under Ange, but I think we will next season under Thomas Frank. Now, this is another example here of it. Pressing the squeeze. You can see there, every player, again, has his own little job to do, has his own player to mark. And as you can see, again, if Burnley went to play it back to the centre mark where the 2 hours are pointed into him, he's got 2 Brentford players running on him. If he tries to play it forward, again, he's got another Brentford behind the Burnley player. So again, it's about being organised, isn't it, Steve? It's about organisation and keeping it right, and everyone accepting their roles. Accountability. Everyone has to be accounted for when it comes to either defending the goal, or defend it to quickly set up a counter attack. This is, I think, the last. Let's do more here. This is the high press, Steve. So look, if you look at here, this is against Arsenal, Steve. Look how many options that the players and directions to go. It really is remarkable, because there's not
a lot of space to play out of the back. Is essentially what this is, right?
Yeah.
So as you can see, you're going to have a high striker press the ball carrier right there, and of course they're going to close the gap. And the only plays that he has is either back to the goalkeeper or out wide right, and then you can see that player closing them down right then and there, which means either they're going to have to try something forward or they're going to have to play it back. But depending on where that striker that pressed the ball originally pressed the ball, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not they're going to be able to play back, right? And of course, if you're trapped if you're trapped on the touchline, they're 1v1. All it's going to do is draw more defenders in. So
and it's very effective, isn't it? It may not look effective, but this is very effective. I think this is the last one.
I also think we have better speed than Brentford.
Yeah, we do, and this is another example as well of it, how it works. So there's plenty of evidence that I think we're going to be more difficult to play against. Now, this is the system. This is the last slide, and this just proves this is now Brentford on the attack, and it really shows how more effective we're going to be on the attack. It is a 1-3-5-1, whatever that formation is, a 1-3-2, whatever.
It's essentially a 4-1-2-3, but it also can be a 4-2-1-3, depending on if you're going. So as you can see, there's essentially a double pivot in front of the back three. But if you wanted your 10 and your 9 to bust into the post, you can also bring another one of these midfielders up. And it's essentially what it ends up creating is it ends up creating essentially a 5-2-3 as you're moving into the box.
It does, and it proves again how effective Thomas Frank is as a manager, and how many plans he's got: plan A, B, C, D, and E.
It's creating spaces, but also creating overloads.
Yeah, the last bit of here is defensive transitions. This is what I was talking about. Position many players, century creating a number advantage in the midfield, creates good conditions in defense transitions. Many players close the ball after losing possession, means that many players can work towards regaining the possession. Therefore, Brentford have often successfully gained possession directly after losing it. Again, there very quickly, Steve, this is Luton on the attack. But look how well organised and how highly pressing Brentford are to get that under transition. And again, the same here under offensive transitions. Thomas Frank also wants his team to counterattack in the offensive transitions. They do this with a high tempo, often attacking the spaces between the centre-backs and the full-backs. In addition, keeping many players centrally while defending enables them to incorporate more players into the counterattack. Now, this is against away to Wolves, which Tottenham, I think, lost 3-2 last season. Again, it's about overlapping, isn't it?
Right, but look at how many players have already beaten their defender, right?
Yeah.
So on the right-hand side, you can see You can see that wing back has already skinned their fullback and also their defensive mid. So if you wanted to play it across to the right hand side, he's gonna have a 1v1 look at the net at the goalkeeper. But if he decides to play that weighted pass forward to this wing back that has already beaten his fullback, right? That center back is going to draw into the ball, which is going to leave your guy right here wide open to go centrally 1v1. And if a defender tries to regain that space, you can always lay it off to that right-handed runner for an open look at net, right? So you essentially have 3 open attackers right here.
And then this is the last one. This is like 4 versus 2. And again, I think this was a home to break. And you just look how much space that player has on the right-hand side. And I really, if that's a Kulu or a Brendan Johnson, whoever plays in that position, it proves that we're going to have a coach that knows what he's doing. Ange knew what he was doing. He was a successful coach. He's a winning coach. But again, it's about adaptability. It's about adapting games through adapting your formation and your tactics through the games. And again, we're seeing it here. Look, I'm just so looking forward to Frank Ball. I'm calling it Frank Ball. But I've got a few questions. Say, go on. Sorry.
I was going to say what I'm looking forward to is the fact that, Ange's philosophy is like, if we can score 4 goals a game, it doesn't matter if we give up 1 or 2, we're still going to get the win, right? The idea was constantly pressing forward, constantly attacking, and kind of playing that swashbuckling attacking football. Well, the thing about it is Thomas Frank is still going to be playing attacking football. That's just his style. But there's also a good opportunity where there's a good possibility where we can average, because of the talent that we already possess. There's a possibility that we're going to be able to have 3 potentially 4 goals per game depending on the opponent. Me personally, I wonder how Sonny plays into this though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I mean, you look at it there, Steve. Hang on, look at it there. So look, let's just call it right. So you got Fakari and goal. Your back 3, you're looking at Porro, probably Romero or Van de Ven, and your doggy or Jess Spence as the other sort of back 3 sort of defenders. You've got a midfield 2, number 5. So you probably got Romero, who did a lot of attacking last season. He's always going forward, or Van de Ven comes forward, or Romero stays back. You've got Archie Gray there, who plays in that number 6, who is a number 6 defensive midfielder. And then you've got the front 3 of probably you've got attacking 3 of Sonny, Madders and Johnson, and then 2 up front, whoever your 2 strikers are, if you're going to go for 2 strikers. So, I think if you look at it, I think this might suit a lot of the players we have in the squad at the moment. I think Thomas Frank's football may suit them better than Ange Ball, because in Ange Ball, they were always chasing back, always running back. That's why we got so many hamstring injuries, I think, because of that. So I think the Tottenham players, especially Sonny, this might play to Sonny's strengths. And I think
the interesting thing, though, is going to be, obviously Slinky's going to be kind of playing that little poacher role, but that 10, that inside forward, false 9, hybrid 10, could easily benefit Sonny as well, too, especially if James Maddison is going to be that fulcrum piece. Where that 8 is right outside the box, right? Because you're going to have Betancourt, who's still going to be playing forward, and this is going to be this right here on this right hand side is where that's going to be that Kulusevski or potential Brendan Johnson position, where you're going to be able to utilize that space right in front of the 18-yard where you're going to have your wing backs off the side right here, which is Pedro Porro, your Dogi. Your back 3 is going to be Van de Ven, Romero, and whoever, whether that be Danso or whether that be Mark Gahey, if they're able to pull that one off.
Yeah. Just a few people before we finish off. Big up to Giant 68. He says, apart from Eze, who do you think Spurs would likely to suit Thomas Frank's system? I like, as Jessica said earlier, Kubu from Real Sociedad. I like him as a player. I think he's good. We've got that other Roma player you say who's coming in after the under-21 championships. I think we need another striker. Um,
I do.
but we need a Premier League proven striker.
Yeah. I just
I-
don't necessarily see that happen though.
No, well, Richie could be going back to Everton, which is a real possibility. So we are looking at really who's out there's a good striker in the Premier League. Who would do good as a striker for? I like the player at
I would have liked to have Liam Delap. I thought that was kind of intriguing.
yeah.
I think he's with Chelsea now, but
I read something about that the other day, Steve. That Chelsea paid out 40 million for Liam Delap, didn't they? They've already got that money from qualifying into the next round of the World Club Championship. So basically, they've already paid for that transfer, if you know what I mean. Striker, I wouldn't mind Højlund from Manchester United. I think Højlund could do a job for us.
Nah, I'll pass on Rasmus. He's had enough time in the Premier League to let me know exactly whether he can be consistent. I'd rather. Here's the weird thing is whether I do agree with you that I think Richie probably could use a change of scenery. I would rather take Richie over Rasmus Højlund. I do not believe in Højlund's ability at the Premier League level.
I get you. The only reason I say that is because of Richie's injury, how he's always injured.
Sure.
Where I think I think Højlund is a good striker. I do. I just think he's not adapting, or managers haven't adapted Højlund, especially under Amarim. But I think if he came into a Frank system and you Solanke as like the false nine and have Højlund up there as your goal scoring attacker, I think you thrive in that. I really do. If you're going to pass on him, who would you think would be a good striker?
The interesting thing is Jessica right there in the chat says Vlahovic from Juve, 20 mil. I wouldn't be opposed to Vlahovic, but again, I'm not a fan of his. Watching Juve, I think that he's an Italian merchant. I think he does well at that level. The interesting thing though is just right off the top of my head, I guess you can say secondary strikers playing behind already proven strikers at the Premier League level, those young strikers that are ready for that ability. That's what I'm trying to think of at the stage right now. But I do agree that striker has to be considered. But for me, I wouldn't mind having Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace through the door.
Yeah.
Especially if they're playing three in the back, having Romero, Gahey, and Van de Ven, three very good ball playing defenders that actually can move forward as well too. Very pacey center backs. Me personally, I think that would be the best center back three in the league.
Yeah,
personally,
I think for what I've been told, he is heading to Liverpool. If he doesn't head to Liverpool, he will stay out the rest of his contract at Palace, and they're going to free.
That's what I hear too. But that being said, being aggressive and flashing money can potentially change things.
Yeah,
but if you can't get that. If you can't get that, I would literally do whatever you can to get Eze through the door, because I think that's going to pay dividends. Because I think we have enough. I think we have enough to play that false nine, hybrid 10 position next to Slinky, whether that be Tell, whether that be Johnson, whether that be Sonny. Me personally, I think we have enough to cover that position. It's going to be, the intriguing thing of having a guy like Eberici Easy play that Brian and Bemo role. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I do. I just think I think that would just be unbelievably crazy.
I think also Vlahovic as well. He wants to stay in Italy, and I think he might end up at AC Milan. I think next season. I think that's what I'm hearing. But look again, another striker. Will he be able? Many strikers from Europe have come into the Premier League, and I've said it before, and I say it again. When we had Harry Kane, he did the job of two strikers. Yeah. He did the running deep bit, and he did the other bit. And it really shows how good Harry Kane was, that we now have to place him with 2 or 3 players. Now, Bayern Munich have brought a young lad in this summer as a striker to probably take over from Harry Kane. So does that signal to us that we get first refusal? Could Harry Kane then come back to Tottenham, which I think is not out of the possibilities for the start of next season, not this season, but the start of next season, I think.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Tottenham does have the first right to match his release clause.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
Yeah.
I think a part of that deal is that Tottenham gets the first opportunity to trigger his release clause. So if they want to bring him back, they can easily bring him back. and
Yeah.
his release clause is only like 50 some odd $million. So it's not even it's not a number that would cripple us. And then you get him to finish the remainder of his career. So
yeah, it's 68 this summer and 58 next January. So, and all, as you said, rightly said, it's nothing. It really is nothing now
for Harry Kane. And now, you know, the interesting thing about Harry Kane is even though he's 32, 33, you could still potentially get 1, 2 maybe seasons before it's all, you know, at least one. You're going to get at least one Harry Kane type season before it's all over.
Yeah.
So.
Big up to Chris Rush as well. Big up, lads. Hope you're well. He says, in the winnable games, you will play 4 at the back. Big games, we're set up with a back 3 win back. He's got the adaptability options to play with. Exactly. Big up for Big Bad Ron. We need at least 6 top quality players at the elite team. Are miles ahead of us. I do agree with you. But as I said before, next week, next week we're going to be very, very busy. A buzzy little bee looking for honey.
Who was the guy that said? Who was the guy in the chat that said that Kulu was done? Who was that guy that said that Kulu was done? A 24-year-old
Gerard.
Who's not even in his prime yet. Okay, man.
Yeah. Gerard says, Thermo, would you accept winning the Champions League and finish 17th? Maybe you would. Maybe you would sack the manager or so. Well, yeah. If we finish 17th, doesn't matter if he wins us a trophy. Ange finished 17th and won us a trophy. And got the sack.
But if we finish 17th and we win the greatest trophy in European football, which is even greater than the Premier League trophy, if he wins that, he's not getting sacked, regardless of where. The only way he gets sacked is if we finish in the relegation spots. But that being said, a 15th to 17th position and you win the Champions League, This is not Europa League. This is Champions League.
Yeah,
the greatest prize in European football. No way does Thomas Frank get. No way does he get sacked.
I don't. For me personally, I think you should sack him if you finish 17th. Look, winning a trophy is great, but people seem to forget the Premier League is your bread and butter.
Sure.
That's where you earn your money. That's where the money comes in. And I think we should not have finished 17th last season. If the teams below us were a bit more competent and a little bit more not so not so bad, I think we could have been dragged into a relegation fight. But we were so lucky.
I think we were actually for a time there. I actually thought we were.
I did too.
For a time.
I think we both said that, but because the bottom 3 teams were so bad, we got away with it. But as I said to you before, I don't see us being there, and I don't see Manchester United being there. Look, you said what you said about Kulu. Respect to you, Gerard. Everyone's right to their opinion. I respect you for it, man. We may not agree, but look, not everyone is a Kulu fan.
I want to know, it's fine. If you don't like Kulu, that's fine. But me personally, I think that Kulu has the best football IQ of our midfielders. And I also think that he's the only one that's actually playing for the badge. Personally.
And he also says, Ange put all his eggs into the Europa League. I watched the documentary and he did. I think it was the right thing to do. What with Tommy Frank assault the League Cup win, no, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. Just to big up, we've got where we go? Oh yeah, hope you're right. Oh, Big Bad Ron says Kane is not coming back to Spurs to break Premier League record. He's set free from his prison now. Now he will come back to Spurs. He want to finish his career at Tottenham Hotspur. I think he wants to finish where he started, and I think for him that would be and break that Premier League record. He really wants that record. He really does.
Yeah,
I hope you're right, Dermot.
And I think when Harry Kane left, he said, "This isn't goodbye."
Exactly.
He said this wasn't a goodbye. So, what he essentially did is leave the door open for a possible return. And now that he's won his trophy, with Bayern this year, it's doing the exact same thing, but trying to win a Champions League this year. And if he doesn't do it, I can probably see him coming back to finish out his career here. I can see it.
I would take this from 7th in the cup. I'd take that Jessica all day long. Either a domestic or a super for season 1. That's why. And that's why season 2 Frank Junks can be used in the conference. exactly. That's another competition. When we went into the Conference League with Mourinho, we didn't respect the competition. It was like we thought it was beneath us, but it's not. Big up to Shamu Vandy Vu. What happened to Eze? Thought it was safe. Look, Shamu, I know you're joking, man, but look, we will be proven right. I'm not even going to repeat myself again. We will be proven right. And he says, not hating either, Damo, just can't see it happening. Looks like we have given up. Well, no team can do anything because the financial year ended. And I think a lot of teams, I was reading somewhere that Danso and Tel are going on this year's PSR 3-year cycle. Yeah. And then the young Japanese lad, or South Korean Japanese, depending on is going on. It's going on the 25-26 3-year cycle of PSR. Yeah. So that's how Tottenham are doing it. And he says Sunderland have just signed a player. Great for Sunderland.
The interesting thing though, Jessica, is I kind of agree with you, right? So for me, it's all about consistency, and what does consistency look like? Yeah. It's continuing and getting European play, whether that's the Europa League. Me personally, I think that should be the benchmark at least. If you get Conference League, you get Conference League. But the reality is, like, European play has to be the goal, which means you actually have to prioritize the league. But that being said, the way that I look at the competitions are contingencies, right? Because one of them gives you Europa League, one of them gives you Conference League, but you also have that consistency in winning things, which is also important as well too. At the end of the year, I mean, again, why did we play this game? To win trophies, and it doesn't matter which trophy we win, as long as we win one. And one of the things that I like about it is the fact that with that Europa League win last year, it proved to me that this team is capable of winning things even under adversity, and I think that's huge. I think it showed. I think it reflected the tenacity and the heart of this core, that they're able to focus and achieve an objective even in the season that was absolutely just horrible.
Yeah. Look, for me, I just think we're going to have a good season on the Thomas Frank. I don't think it can get any worse. But guys, that is it. That was how Frank set up Spurs. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, I'm very novice at talking about tactics and talking about how teams set up. So I'm learning myself. There will be more tactics shown during the season where after the game, we're going to tactically go over the game and go over how we won, how we lost, or could we've done better. Steve, you've got a busy day tomorrow. You have a double header of matches. You've got the US national team and the Club World Club. Just quickly before we end up, what else you got coming up on your channel?
That is absolutely it. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern, noon Eastern, 5 o'clock UK time, Club World Cup action featuring Inter Miami, who became the first MLS side to not only win a match in the Club World Cup, but also advance to the knockout rounds. Their reward for doing that is PSG. So they get Paris Saint-Germain, the Champions League winner. And so that is going to be kicking off in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. So there's that. And then, of course, as you mentioned, 7 o'clock Eastern, and I believe that's midnight UK time, the U.S. men's national team will kick off their quarterfinal against Costa Rica in the U.S.'s first test of the Gold Cup, right? So we're going to find out exactly what this U.S. team is going to be made of as they march their way to the semifinal and ultimately the final, and of course, a World Cup championship in December of 2026. Never doubt the U.S. men's soccer. Let me tell you, we're primed and ready for that World Cup in 2026. So I'll just say that tomorrow is going to be absolutely fantastic. So make sure that you like and subscribe as we're on a race to 1,000 on Stateside Play.
Yeah, definitely do get over there, guys. A lot of football. Steve's going to prove to you tomorrow, guys. We're not on tomorrow night. I'm having the night off, and then Monday we'll be back with Newsbeat with all the news, views, and everything to do with Spurs. Next Friday night is a start of a new podcast. Premier League Till We Die. And so me and Steve are going to do that. And I think we do that every Friday, I think at 10. Would 10 suit you next Friday, Steve? Is that suitable for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
So any new, and of course, any breaking news in between then and now, we will bring to you first and fastest here, guys. But thank you so much for watching. Steve, thanks for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed it. And there'll be more of these tactics shows on during the season. But whatever you do, come on, you Spurs. In Thomas Frank, we trust. Just Thomas Frank, we trust. Do you want to end off, Steve, with your Kulu?
Absolutely, man. Kulu forever. In Kulu we trust. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.